let's get started on the New Hampshire primaries first.
GOP presidential nomination. It's getting more personal after the New Hampshire primary. Now, CBS News projects a win for Donald Trump in yesterday's contest against former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. But in her speech last night, Haley said she is not dropping out of this race. Instead, she is vowing to fight on, and she is sharpening her attacks on the former president.
And speaking of attacks, former President Trump gave a victory speech that at times felt angry to some and included some threats threats of investigations, veiled and not so veiled in many people's view, if Nikki Haley does not drop out of this race and soon.
With New Hampshire, it's back-to-back victories for former President Donald Trump as he moves closer to the Republican presidential nomination.
We have to do what's good for our party.
Trump's win in the state, where nearly half of the voters identify as independents, adds to questions about former ambassador.
I think New Hampshire is built different. Sure, there's a lot of, I guess, momentum among moderate Republican Party voters or whatever that are looking for anyone but Trump, but it doesn't yield turnout. There's two things to understand here. One, is this a large enough constituency within the Republican Party that it will hurt their chances in the general? As in, will they turn around and lend their support to Donald Trump and rally around him when he is the candidate? The second question also is that, are there enough Republican voters in the Republican Party in the primaries that actually will go for anybody but Trump? And I don't think that there are, especially in other states, including the state that Nikki Haley was the governor of. The entire state legislature is backing Donald Trump pretty much. Her own state is like, Donald Trump is like a 50-point lead or something. You know what I mean? He has a major lead on Nikki Haley in her own goddamn state. That's not good at all. And even the media have started talking about Nikki Haley's campaign as though, when will she drop out? Will she, won't she drop out? When will she drop out? So, like, that's also not good for her. None of this looks good for her. So are normie conservatives just fine with Trump now? I've told you guys this already. There's two types of Republican Party voters. People that vote for the Democratic Party, the moderate Republicans, that is, and Trump voters. That's it. The Republican Party is mostly comprised of people who like Trump, but I guess think that he might be a little bit too much of a liability. There is no reason, and I've been saying this for years, there is virtually no reason for you as a moderate Republican to not vote for the Democratic Party. If you are a moderate Republican, why don't you just vote for the Democratic Party? The Republican Party only offers you one thing that's different than the Democratic Party, and that's just like more chaotic racism and bigotry. That's it. The idea that it's like guns and stuff is so silly. The Democratic Party can't do anything about guns and will not do anything about guns. So if your whole shtick is that you're like, you want to lower taxes, but you're not like, but you don't want to come across like super racist, then why don't you just vote for the freaking Democratic Party? The switcher is not upside down. That's the design.
Ambassador Nikki Haley's path to victory. And Trump spent a majority of his speech last night appearing almost angry as he fixated on his only remaining GOP opponent.
This is not your typical victory speech, but let's not have somebody take a victory when she had a very bad night. She had a very bad night.
Trump's success in New Hampshire comes down to the strength of his base. According to CBS News exit polls, 80% of Trump's voters described their support as strongly for him, while only 30% of Haley's voters said they strongly favor her. Most of her backers said they were voting for her with some reservations or because they disliked Trump.
New Hampshire is first in the nation. It is not the last in the nation.
Still, Haley is vowing to stay in the race, criticizing her 77-year-old rival.
With Donald Trump, you have one bout of chaos after another. This court case, that controversy, this tweet, that senior moment.
While Trump appeared to forecast a bruising campaign against Haley if she stays in the fight, and he leveled baseless accusations.
And just a little note to Nikki. She's not going to win. She's not going to win. But if she did, she would be under investigation by those people in 15 minutes. And so would Ron have been.
Oh my God. This is so sad. Come on, Tim. Tim, you're a married man now. Have some fucking respect, dog. What are you doing? Damn, dude. Just straight up standing behind him and just trying to be like, I'm here. I got pussy, guys. I got pussy, by the way. I did get pussy. I don't know if you guys know that, but like I have a wife now. I'm a wife guy. Yeah, I did get pussy.
But he decided to get out. He decided to get out.
But Haley says it's on to her home state of South Carolina.
Every time I've run for office in South Carolina, I've beaten the political establishment.
I did hear Nikki say, and now it's off to South Carolina. Well, I love South Carolina.
No, Tim Scott is not VP. It's not happening. Tim Scott smiles along as Trump points out that since Nikki Haley appointed him to the Senate and he endorsed Trump, you must really hate her.
She actually appointed you, Tim? And think of it, appointed, and you're the senator of his state, and she endorsed me. You must really hate her. No,
God.
it's a
Yeah, you think so? Chat, what do you think? You think Trump is gonna, that's his VP, you think?
shame. It's a shame. Uh-oh.
I just love you.
No, that's
Come on, dog. Question, will you admit you were wrong about Ramaswamy getting a cabinet position because now Trump has him on the campaign? He hasn't gotten a cabinet position. He's just on the campaign. And no, I don't believe Trump will give him like the Department of Education. I said at most he will get an appointment to an embassy position that is like a shitty one. That's what I said. No, he's not even going to be the ambassador to like India. Okay. That's like an important position. Also, admit you were wrong about something that is truly a guess and is still a guess, by the way, at this point, too. Why would I admit that I'm wrong? It hasn't even happened yet. The reason why I'm saying that is because I hope you guys understand a lot of those agency positions are oftentimes given to people that have actually demonstrated their bona fides in that specific sector. You got people that have dedicated their whole lives to basically lobbying the government or getting lobbied and writing legislation that is directly antagonistic to that federal agency. Those are the people that get propped up, not the Andrew Yangs of the world who are just like one-off, one-trick ponies. I think his background in pharma would be valuable if he was like a Betsy DeVos type and not simply like a Silicon Valley pharma bro that, you know, wrote the book on not being woke.
Right now, Trump campaign officials believe all of this on the legal front is helping Trump. It's stoking the grievances of his supporters. It's helping him generate momentum in this Republican race. At the same time, what's notable is behind this.
No one on earth has benefited more from Trump's presidency than George W. Bush. No. I mean, that's definitely a good take. But I think that the Democratic Party certainly has benefited tremendously by being like a feckless, neutered institution that, you know, got a ton of donations in that process. I think that the media greatly benefited from Donald Trump's presidency. Rich people loved it too. It really got people interested and invested in politics, even if it was like shallow overall.
Look, New Hampshire was the state where she was best positioned to win of all states. She came in second. She wanted to come in second in Iowa, and she wanted to win in New Hampshire to propel her to what still would have been an uphill battle against Trump. Instead, third in Iowa, she loses a two-person race in New Hampshire. But George, it's not over. I mean, we should keep in mind what Rick said at the beginning. Only two small states have voted. She goes to her home state where Trump is even more popular there than he was in New Hampshire or Iowa.
And her home state senator.
People are still not realizing how anti-Trump the Democratic Party is going to be if Trump wins again. It's literally going to be the American version of Peronism. What? That's wild. I think that the Democratic Party loves being in a position where they can't do anything. They still have asses in the seats, so they have like some semblance of like aesthetic institutional power, but then they also can't really do anything because Trump is there to veto it, right? I think that Donald Trump winning the presidency is so good for liberals in general. They can pretend like they are radical revolutionary figures who legitimately want to save America. They can get a ton of support because nobody galvanizes and unites the base like a good figurehead that pisses everybody off. That's what I mean. It's going to be the anti-Trump party and nothing else for years to come. Yeah, I think that's precisely what happened under the Trump administration, and they will keep pushing for it. They can scream at leftists again, too, which they love, instead of accepting that a genocide lost them the election. I don't think that it's necessarily the Israel-Palestine stuff that, unless it comes down to like just Michigan or something, I don't think that it's going to be Israel-Palestine that makes this election or breaks this election. Because the people that do vote are they don't give a shit. The people that do end up voting, they don't give a shit. Now, could you make an argument that you could probably get more people on board? Record number of Zoomers came out for Biden in 2020, so I don't know what you mean. Beautiful analysis. Couple of reasons. They wanted Trump out. Secondly, there was a lot more availability, like the way that you can vote, and also a record number of turnout for Trump too, something to also remember on that front. Here's the major issue right now with the demographics. Currently, with the way that the demographics work is that all of those constituencies that voted for Biden that are not always like going to be there, like younger voters, for example, are actually very much not interested in voting this time around. This is a big weakness for the Biden campaign, one that they've been able to, at least on the polling, overcome by picking up a lot of the suburban, moderate Republican voters, the educated white voters that vote in large numbers, obviously, and would otherwise vote for the Republicans, but have realized like, oh, well, some of them are too stinky. Inside of this faction, you have white women specifically that do care, or even white educated otherwise Republican voters in the suburbs that do care about abortion. They have daughters, they give a shit about it, they think that it's like too much. And the other bases of support, the other areas that Biden can draw from, like the youth vote, which doesn't vote in large numbers at all in comparison to other demographics, older demographics. But when it does, will usually consistently and reliably vote for the Democratic Party, are not actually, they're not actually interested in voting at all. There's like I think it's like there's 17% or something, I remember from earlier polls that I was looking at, that are still not sure whether they would vote for Biden again or not. This was a couple months ago, so obviously things might have changed since then, and things certainly will change as the election gets closer and closer. But there's definitely, I think, a lot of youth voters, for example, that are absolutely tapping out almost entirely because of Gaza, and not even remotely interested in being activated.
Tim Scott is endorsing Donald Trump
Well,
there.
both home state senators and everybody in the congressional delegation, except for one member of Congress, the governor, they're all with Trump. But let's not forget, she got elected governor twice there. She was a popular governor, got reelected overwhelmingly. This is not over.
To be honest, I think if Trump talked politely and acted more like in his old school TV days, The Apprentice, not WWE, most Democrats would probably vote for him and he'd be seen as a good president by the average normie. I mean, Nikki Haley is like literally what you're describing. And yes, Nikki Haley beats Biden with a higher margin than Trump does, almost doubling Trump's margin. And another thing that you have to remember is that like Democrats, given the way that the Electoral College works, given the way that like, Democratic votes are not based on land, but instead by population, Democrats have to like beat the Republicans by at least like 3 to 5 percentage points on the popular vote. So if you look at the popular vote percentages and you see that like Nikki Haley's actually beating Biden by like 6 points in certain polls, and Trump is beating Biden by 2 points, that's a massive failure overall.
Are you actually convinced she's going to stay in through South Carolina?
Look, she's the only one left. She has the money, she has the resources, she has a candidate that she's running against in Donald Trump who is volatile, under investigation and all that. And look at his speech last night. It was vindictive, angry, threatening. And it continued after he was done speaking. He went on social media complaining about Fox News. No,
that's a huge conclusion so early in the race. I agree. Any kind of polling that you look at right now is silly. Also, Nikki Haley's not going to win the primaries regardless unless something like insane happens and Trump dies or whatever. So obviously, this is pure hypothetical this early on. I'm not saying that is a guarantee at all. I'm just simply reporting on what the polls are saying.
He's attacking his former press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany. He is a volatile candidate. I think that there will be pressure on her to drop out, but there will also be donors who want to stay in just because you don't know what's going to happen with him.
Is this truly the candidate that Joe Biden wants?
Look, the overarching message from the White House and the president's campaign is that Joe Biden beat Donald Trump before and he can beat him again. And this morning, the message coming out of the Biden campaign is game on. They are very clearly gearing up for a general election. I mean, the president in a statement last night said flatly, Donald Trump.
Yeah, they're gearing for the general election is so stupid. One, they have not activated at all. Like, I feel like they are unironically asleep at the wheel. Finally, they're campaigning and they're pushing defend choice. Of course, they're going to push that. Thank God. This election is going to be won or lost on abortion. That is the main issue. People will say, oh, inflation is a problem, blah, blah, blah. By the time the election comes around, unless OPEC Plus 100% lends full-blown support behind Donald Trump and does something incredible that greatly explodes oil prices and inflation skyrockets once again as a consequence of how expensive oil is, and Brandon can't turn it around and normalize the prices with his like reserve fuel or whatever. Without that, the economy I don't think will be as big as a player in this election. Major point of contention is abortion. It's a huge deal. People haven't forgotten. People want to punish Donald Trump. Donald Trump did that. Can Democrats really win this by abortion talking points alone? If it wasn't Biden, if it was a more dynamic candidate, yes. Not even close. Like, it would be like Ronald Reagan decisive victory, but in the other direction. No, I'm not even joking on this. You're crazy. Any person that was like younger and more dynamic right now would be going nutty mode with abortion, saying I'm going to protect and enshrine protections for abortion and access to medical care in general would be a massive benefit. The fact that Biden can still win on that, I think, is enough proof for me, at least, that it's a totally prescient point that Americans do care about.
Trump is going to be the GOP nominee. And he says our very democracy is at stake here. And he made a direct appeal to those key independents and Republican voters who don't support Trump to go ahead and join his fight. And George is also changing up his campaign structure. He is now dispatching two of his top White House aides who helped run his 2020 campaign, sending them over to help manage his reelection. And perhaps the clearest sign yet that he's changing gears, Biden himself is ramping up his direct attacks on Trump. He called him out 14 times in his speech yesterday.
And John, if you look at the results last night, you basically had two incumbents on the Republican side, Donald Trump on the
Biden hasn't done anything for abortion in his term yet. It don't matter. 3 Supreme Court justices that Trump put in power literally lied to the American population and destroyed abortion protections is Jover. That will forever be stinky. That stink doesn't go away. I love that the Democrats' major focus is independents and Republicans. Yeah, well, if I'm being really real, that's easy mode. The reason why Democrats' main focus is independents and Republicans is because those are the motherfuckers who vote. If outsiders voted all the goddamn time, if young people voted, if outsiders voted, and they were like a serious voting constituency, and they were able to like overcome the hurdles that they have in front of like voting, which, you know, especially for young people, there's plenty of hurdles. Work, school, not being in the same zip code where you're actually like supposed to be at the time during the time of voting. If you overcame all those hurdles and they became like an active, valid, and not caring as well, but if you became an active, valid voting bloc that lent support to candidates that are truly popular and are actually beloved, like Bernie Sanders, then there would be a different dynamic. There'd be a different equation. The reality is, this is the worst group of people to talk to about this because you guys are all going to vote. A lot of you LARP and say, oh, I'm not going to vote. I'm a Maoist third world. Just shut the fuck up. The overwhelming majority of Americans in this chat that are under the age of like 35 are still going to go out and vote. You say nope right now, but you're inevitably going to go out and vote, and you should anyway. You're very interested in politics. You're very abnormal that way. The majority of Americans in your age demographic don't give a f. They don't care. If they did, Bernie Sanders would have absolutely crushed. You think they didn't try? They did. They tried to beef up a voter turnout. The strategy for Bernie Sanders was, we're going to get the people that don't vote normally, that are going to come out and vote, the disenfranchised Americans. And turns out it's not enough. You know who goes out and votes? Old people, rich people, reliable voters that vote year over year, that watch MSNBC, watch CNN, and watch Fox News. So that's why the Democratic Party is like, yeah, f those guys. I don't give a shit. They're not going to vote anyway. Let's look at the increasingly shrinking population of voters that do go out and vote all the time, and let's try to win them over. I'm not blaming the youth at all. I'm just simply stating that Bernie Sanders' outreach strategy was not good for the primaries. Primaries were dominated by the older population, the population of reliable voters. It's just true. Voting is not easy. It's confusing. There's no compulsory voting. It's not done on a federal holiday. It's insane. Like, imagine neither party does shit for you and you work a 9 to 5. Why would you wake up early to go out and like make sure that you are a part of the voter rolls, okay? That you haven't been purged from the voter rolls. Figure out exactly what polling station you're voting at. And also the entire process of like where you can vote and how you can vote is very different, and it varies greatly from state by state. Like, it's all a very confusing process. Anyone who's ever voted can tell you that, unless you're in one of those like suburbs where it's actually very streamlined and very easy for you. For the most part, it's not an easy process at all. Not an intuitive process at all. So why would you take time out when you feel like your voice doesn't matter because you're in a deep red state or a deep blue state, and then beyond that you're sitting around and going to vote for like a guy that you don't think has your best interest at heart? Is not going to happen. Many people in the age demographics that we're in are not interested or invested at all, especially when it's an election cycle that's boring as it's a repeat of 2020 and there's no COVID. It's just, it sucks. Sorry, broski, there's a genocide going on. Yeah, nobody cares about that, by the way, either. So, you know, if we're talking about voting for the American population, the American voter population and their interests on it, they don't give a f.
Relatively, Joe Biden did better with Democrats than Donald Trump did with the Republicans.
Oh, a lot better, and without really campaigning, without having his name on the ballot. And look, a lot of those who voted in New Hampshire, and we saw this in Iowa as well, who voted for the non-Trump alternative, which was Nikki Haley, didn't vote, they told people in exit polls, did not vote because they liked Nikki Haley. They voted because they wanted to oppose Donald Trump. And this is...
I like that Donald Trump, for the moderate Republicans, have become like a Hillary Clinton style figure, right? For the independents and the moderates. And they're just like lending support to anyone that comes along, even if like in 2016, that person was a, you know, rugged ass socialist.
This is a phenomenon that could really hurt him in a general election, which is you have a significant number of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents who simply will not vote for Donald Trump. In a close race, that could be decisive.
John Carl, Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Hi, everyone.
Oh, by the way, congratulations to me for getting 1 vote, which is 2 votes less than my uncle did in Nashua Ward 19. That's right, Hank Pecker.